All right. Thanks for sticking around, everybody. This week's guest needs no introduction for anyone who's been following along with Sneaky Fox FC and our quest for $1 million recently. Big thanks to Nick Perera, aka Big Kick Nick, for hopping on. How you doing, big man?
I'm good. I'm still recovering physically from the grueling weekend. 6 games in 3 days, and I haven't worn cleats in 10 years, so I've got blisters everywhere you can have blisters.
Believe me, I know. I didn't even kick a ball, and I think I have blisters from wearing cleats for a few minutes there because I play on nothing but artificial turf, as I'm sure you know well at this point. And cleats is a whole different ballgame. But first, Big Kick Nick, what do you think about that nickname? Yay or nay?
Not sold on it. No, I'm not sold on it.
Okay, we're gonna go nay.
That sounds like that could be the most American expression of all time, right? Big kick Nick. That sounds like, I don't know, something out of one of those movies when you're a kid where the coach takes over a soccer team that's failing and they're like, well, there's Big Kick Nick over in the corner. I don't know.
To
I'm
save the
not big on
day. Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that. I like the transition from Big Nick, from NFL. But yeah, I hear you on that. So we'll leave that one on the side. Plus, I didn't come up with it, so therefore I'm not married to it.
Yeah, me neither.
Now, as I got to know you better last week, I sort of learned just how many hats you wear or have worn in the soccer world. And I sort of just became more and more interested in learning about, Nick Pereira's path. I mean, your journey has been an interesting one. And that's what this podcast is really all about. So I'm excited to sort of give people a little window into the career that you've had. And it's still going, by the way. As I've saw firsthand, you still got plenty of tread on those tires. So just because we're about to go into a bunch of stuff, people keep in mind this guy can still play. But before we get to sort of where you came from and how you got here, let's start with what's fresh on the mind here, the TST 7v7 tournament. One of the things that was really interesting, coming into it for me, number one, I had no expectations because I had no idea what to expect. But it was really cool the way that Mike McGee, he's sort of the brains of the operation. He got guys from all over, all different backgrounds. Got a guy from Brazil, technically a guy from Spain. That's you, even though you're as American as apple pie at this point. So, but what was your connection? How'd you get first connected with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a weird one, right? I think that when we all got there, it all felt like we'd known each other for 20 years. And some of them hadn't known each other for 20 years, but I certainly wasn't one of them. So Lamar Nagel, who played in the MLS for a long time, played for the Sounders, played for DC United. He knows Mike and a bunch of these guys. And I think Lamar has also played on a US Sevens team. So he knew these guys. And anyway, I get a phone call from Lamar one day and says, hey, there's going to be this tournament. I'd already been invited by another team, happened to be Newtown, the team that won the
Uh-oh.
whole million.
Oh
And
no.
he said, listen, there's a bunch of MLS guys I know that are going to go. I recommended you. Talk to Mike McGee. He's a great guy. Let's see if it works out. And in my head, I'm thinking it's not going to work out because every preconception I had of the MLS guys who had just retired was, I don't know, hyper arrogant, super conceited, all about themselves, not going to acknowledge anyone's career that didn't play in the MLS, and I'm going to be this like little redheaded stepchild in the corner, and no one's going to listen to me or talk to me. So it's probably not going to work out. And then fast forward to today, which my experience couldn't have been more different than that, of course. But that's kind of how we got connected. Lamar, who's a good friend, played for the Stars a little bit. When he finished his MLS career, came and played 2 years with us in indoor. Just kind of connected us and said, hey, you guys should meet and see if it works out.
It worked out. It worked out quite well, especially for Sneaky Fox, given all the goals you scored during the tournament. Now, expectations, sort of, you touched on it there. How did the tournament live up? Not just the team, because the team dynamic was incredible. I mean, like I talked about it on the last week's podcast. I was just blown away by how quickly everybody came together from all the, as you said, MLS guys, USL, Arena, Beach. I mean, like from all different walks of soccer life. But the tournament itself, how did that stack up relative to your expectations?
I think it far exceeded what I was expecting. I mean, listen, I've been involved with small-sided soccer since 2010. And in those 13 odd years, there's been a lot of hype about, well, there's this one thing coming and there's this other thing that's going to put on. There's this new team here. There's a new league here. And I've heard every single story. So when it came out, hey, there's $1 million tournament, my first reaction was cynical. It was like, yeah, sure. We'll see about it when it actually happens. It was like that Fire Island thing. I think it was like, yeah, this is the coolest thing ever. It's not happening, right? That was my first sort of my first gut instinct about it. And so I didn't really ever pursue it. I just kind of was like, whatever, it's probably not going to happen. And by the time that we're a month from it, they'll cancel for whatever reason. Then you get there. I mean, you were there, you get there, and the fields are top class. Everything's branded, logoed. Everything is hyper professional. The staff that were there working were top notch. I mean, they were organized, prepared. The medical center that we had, the little athletes village with the rehab and the recovery areas, fantastic. Everybody had their own locker room. You had gear that was given to you. I mean, it was probably as professional of a setup as I've ever been involved in without it being, I don't know, U.S. soccer's going to a World Cup. But it was really, really organized. I thought the media coverage was fantastic. I thought that, being on Peacock, I got texts from people I haven't talked to in 10 years that were like, hey, man, I just happened to turn the TV on and you were running around. So no, I thought it was really top notch. And I sent an email, of course, probably one of 6 million emails, but I sent one to the organizers being like, hey, you guys should be super proud of the event you put on. That was fantastic.
And the fans even showed up, which, I mean, it was
cool. I mean, now that I think when we were playing, I mean, I don't know if you noticed it. I never noticed it when we were playing. I didn't like realize there were that many people. And then now they're doing pano shots of all of us playing, and it's like full stands. I didn't even like assimilate it. I think we were just in this little weird sort of sneaky Fox bubble that we never really saw what was going on outside.
I don't even know if I'm out. I don't even know if I'm out of the bubble yet. You're right, though. You're right. Well, congrats, by the way, on being named to the team of the tournament. Very well deserved, given how well you played, how many goals you scored, and everything else. I think we probably should have had more. I think Chris Toth specifically probably could have been on that team as well. In fact, probably others, not to shortchange other people. So we'll get to Chris and the beach soccer and your experience there quickly, but in a minute. But let's go quickly to the beginning. So you're actually from Spain, as I mentioned. You played for a Belgian club growing up. You speak about 1 billion languages. And, so, I mean, you've got this sort of cosmopolitan, international, bon vivant, background. And yet you went the NCAA route. You ended up at UCSB, where, to be fair, you won an NCAA tournament title. And I think you were named offensive MVP of the College Cup. Not a big deal. But how did you end up going the NCAA route?
Yeah, it's a story I've told before, and it's one that's kind of every time I tell it, it takes on a different tone. My mom is American. She's from where she lived in LA her whole life. My dad is from Spain. They met in France and went to college there. They decided they were going to stay in Europe and build a family there. So I was born in Spain, and then quickly we moved to Belgium when I was about a year and a half old for my dad's work. My dad worked at the European Commission. So we lived there for a really long time. My brother is handicapped, so he's autistic and very low functioning. So the care in Europe was not fantastic, and it kind of all the things kind of came to fruition at the same time. I was graduating high school. My dad was nearing retirement age from his work. We were looking for something new where the care for my brother might be a bit better. And so all these things kind of combined to let's move to the US. And that was when I was like 15, 16, we kind of made that decision. And then I had to like take my SATs in Belgium, which was a whole nightmare because I didn't know what SATs were. So I just showed up and then they were like, oh, it's multiple choice. Oh, okay, I should know that. So there was just like all these things that happened for us to decide that we were going to move to the US. And then, once you've made that decision, it's okay, well, where do we move? And so we moved to San Diego. And so then I started touring colleges in San Diego. So I went to USD, I went to UCSD, I went to UCLA and toured them in LA. And I kind of never got that like feel of I need to be here. And then I toured Santa Barbara, and anybody who's ever been to that campus, it's hard for you to go to that campus and be like, I'm not really feeling it. So I did some soccer camp there. They had like a elite ID camp or whatever, and I went, and of course I loved it. So I went the year that I actually was enrolled. I signed up for the camp and then started school shortly thereafter. And yeah, my mom and dad actually went on their honeymoon to Santa Barbara. So my mom was randomly like, "Hey, you should go to Santa Barbara. It's beautiful." We checked it out, and then the rest is history.
There it is. Well, so
And
obviously you had
the reason for the NCAA soccer was I was never in Europe. I never pursued soccer. I never was like, I need to go be a professional soccer player. I never did. It was, I've always been like a late bloomer. So for me, it was like never a route. And then there was this format where it was like, I'm either going to go to the UK where you just go to university, or I can do this weird sort of nebulous hybrid thing in the US where you get to kind of play and you also get to kind of do your studies. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that one. And so I had no idea that the NCAA route was such a commonly traveled route to professional soccer. Like I didn't know that that was the trajectory. I just wanted to play soccer.
yeah.
And then as you're playing, you realize like, oh, actually, I'm not bad at soccer. Maybe I keep playing a little bit further.
So it was that's interesting. I mean, you come from Europe where everybody thinks everybody just wants to be a soccer player growing up, not necessarily your sort of mindset. Then you come here and you become a professional soccer player. Now,
Yeah.
so after winning the NCAA title, being offensive MVP, obviously you had a great career in NCAA. Was the thought then, as a late bloomer, is like I'm making this work. Somebody's gonna pay me to play soccer.
Yeah, I mean, when we won the championship in 2006, right, that was sort of my first taste of success in the US. And I was a sophomore. And I had gotten a couple agents that had called and been like, you should do the Generation Adidas route where you leave college early. My parents are super, I mean, my dad's got a doctorate, my mom's got a master's and whatever. And so they were like, listen, you're not leaving college to play soccer. Like, that's not happening. So you can already get that out of your mind. So then everything kind of cooled, it kind of was like this big hype and then things cooled a bit. And then I just, again, circumstances out of my control. The year that I exited college, which was 2009 Combine, I'm sorry, 2010, 2009, yeah, 2009. The MLS cancels their reserve league. Rosters get cut from 26 to 23. We were in the middle of kind of a financial crisis in the US. It wasn't a good time for everybody. So all of a sudden, the opportunities in the MLS just disappeared. I mean, it was like the number 3 ranked pick in the draft was barely getting a contract. So I actually went to the combine, didn't get drafted in the first, whatever it was, 3 rounds or 4 rounds that they did. And then there used to be a supplemental draft and all these things. Those were gone. There used to be a reserve league. That was gone. So I got a call from Preki over at Chivas USA, and he says, listen, I know you didn't get drafted, so why don't you come into preseason? Hey, let's do preseason. And I was there for whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks, and I thought I did really well. I scored in every game we played. I did whatever. And they offered me at the time what was called a developmental contract, which was like $10,000 a year to live in LA. And, I speak 6 languages. I have a European passport. And I was like, yeah, I can't accept that. That's just not even possible.
Yeah.
So I decided I'd go play in Europe. I tried it for a year there. And I guess for me, the biggest learning point of all these sort of things, circumstances coming together was there was something kind of calling me in a direction, but it wasn't the direction that I had envisioned. When everyone plays soccer growing up, everyone says, you buy a jersey and it's got somebody's name on the back, and you go, well, I want to be Messi or I want to be Ronaldo. So what's my path? Well, I've got to go play first division soccer. Then I've got to go play for my national team. Then I've got to go play in Man United or whatever it is. Yeah. And so I had that vision in my head of like, oh, I'll play in the MLS for 2-3 years. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to go over to Europe and play for Atletico Madrid, of course. And then I'm going to go win the La Liga, and then I'll go play in a World Cup. Simple. And really what was calling me was like, go invest in small-sided soccer, go be somebody in the kind of game that suits me, technical, quick, sharp. Because at the time the MLS was very physical, really kind of long dump and run, and it never suited my game. And I just kept trying to fit myself into whatever, the square peg into a round hole or whatever. I just kept trying. and the world was telling me that it was not going to work. And it took me a while to really realize what I was being told by the universe or whatever is like, go invest in something that you're really good at, and go enjoy that experience in life, which also happens be to work with starting a family, working on your business career, working on your like sports management side of things. So I actually think I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe it sounds mean, but I actually think I got the best hand dealt to me because I didn't play 15 years or 12 years in the MLS and then come out to start my life, right? Like I went through that hangover of like, what do I do with my life at 23? And then I kicked on from there, to start myself a career and to build things around what I wanted to prioritize in life, having, getting married to my wonderful wife, having children, starting my career in business while playing and having these experiences sort of together. So the world pushed me in a direction, and it took me a while to notice which direction it was pushing me. And finally, when I did, is when everything started to go in the right way.
Okay, and I suppose this was probably around, as you said, 2010, 11, something like that, when you really got, small-sided, specifically arena, it sounds like really became your path. I know you played for, let's see, San Diego, right? San Diego Sockers, Milwaukee Wave, Ontario, Syracuse, and now you're with Tacoma Stars. Um, how hard is it to make a living as an indoor player?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I would say it isn't that hard if I didn't also tack on the fact that I play for the U.S. beach national team, and they don't. U.S. Soccer does not pay us to do
Mm-hmm.
that, or they pay us like I shouldn't even say pay us. There's like a daily per diem that we get.
Yeah, sure.
For years there wasn't, and so we were. It's hard. It's hard because I feel like I'm a little bit of a sucker. Like if there's an opportunity, and even like let's take Sneaky Fox. Other teams are willing to like pay me straight up front to go to this tournament. Here's this cash, take it. But I'm more seduced by the project, the people, and the experience. So I was like, no, I don't. I'd rather pick a team full of guys that I want to go play with and have an experience that's nurturing, as opposed to just hand me a check. So it is hard to build a career in indoor soccer. I think that what clubs are figuring out, and it's taken some teams a really long time, is that it's not so much what you get paid to play indoor soccer, it's the general package of what you're getting. It's like, can you combine it with some youth coaching? Can you combine it with some work outside? Can you put together a package that enables people to start a life? And so there were some pretty lean years, even when we were first having children, I was still following beach soccer. I'd go to some trip, and then I'd go to indoor, and you'd change teams, and you weren't getting paid what you wanted. So it was not an easy career path at all. And now, the last sort of 2-3 years, I've really been able to kind of come into my own about understanding what I want in life and how to build that. And so I feel like I'm reaping the benefits now, of all those hard times. But again, I always find that, I mean, everyone says it, but when you're doing things that you love to do, it doesn't feel like work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So even when it was lean, it was like, I love doing this. I wake up every morning excited to go to practice, excited to go play. I'm hyper competitive, as you know. It's like when we're losing, I'm not happy, and when we're winning, I'm stoked. And getting those feelings are just it's hard. I mean, that's what all those guys on our team were striving for, right? Like I want that feeling again, that competitive feeling.
Yeah.
So it's been hard, but now I'm really happy with where I'm at. I'm really happy with where our family's at, and it's been really cool.
So, as somebody who, as I teased before, you wear a lot of hats. You still are a player. You've been a coach. You coached the Tacoma Stars for a few years. You've been a GM of the NWSL, NWSL's OL Reign team, Seattle team, which we'll get into in just a second. You have so many hats that it's interesting to hear just sort of how you've amalgamated them all together, and made and found a way to really make a life for yourself and your family out of it. I mean, I could probably ask you a million questions about beach or about indoor, but I'll ask you one more. What's the best when you go on the road? What's the best atmosphere in the Arena League?
Um, there's a couple places that are pretty unique to play. I would say right now, Probably it's a tie. I would say it's between Kansas City, where there's really like a huge following of people. And again, I haven't played in Milwaukee since having left Milwaukee, but going down to Mexico and playing in Mexico in front of those crowds and the way that they follow soccer. I mean, anybody who's ever followed soccer in this country is pretty unique. I mean, they're not particularly uh, pleasant to American players a lot of the time. And I think that level of animosity and passion and intensity is just something that's it's almost like if you're not going to have a stadium full of home fans that are following you, you'd rather a stadium full of people that really hate you. And maybe hate you is the wrong word, but that are against you.
Yeah.
So I like playing. I like playing in Mexico. I always have. And Kansas City's done something really cool with their arena. But I think our stadium in Tacoma, the showware that we play at in Kent, is we have some fans that are like thick and through thick and thin. When we need them to be there, they've been there. So I don't know. There's a lot of cool places, and anyone who's never experienced indoor, I feel like they need to go to a really heavy indoor game where there's a massive rivalry and just sit in there and kind of live in it. Going down to San Diego is always, always, always a battle and always kind of crazy too. So there's a lot of really cool places.
The MASL, I mean, it's one of those, I don't know if uncut gems is the right thing, but it's just not enough people know about it, not enough people follow it. But I think like in this social media age, it'll probably get a little bit more popular. Like it's really cool. The atmosphere is electric at those games. I mean, I think MASL is something that people need to pay more attention to, long story short.
I think the league itself needs to take some pretty heavy steps into how to make things more accessible. I mean, I think that if you just look at TST, for example, there were the diehard fans that were like, I'm going to the games, I'm going to get the VIP pack, I'm going to go do whatever. And then there's also the casual fans that just happen to turn the TV on, right? Like if I asked you right now how to find an MASL game online, I guarantee you couldn't tell me where it is. And most people couldn't. And I just think that's such a hindrance. Is not being able to have widely distributed marketing packages, and that's really tough. So I think the league itself needs to look at TST and be like, what can we take from this format and this model and this way of doing things so that we can grow?
Yeah, 100%. Last one on Tacoma Stars here in indoor. You were a player coach for a few years there. How did that come about, and did your teammates sort of treat you differently?
I think, as I was saying earlier, every experience I've done has taught me some things and has really pushed me in a direction to figure out how to put it all together. That was one of those experiences which is really, really challenging. Probably one of the hardest things I've had to do, because you have to have rapport with the human as a teammate to be like, hey, we're buddies and like, let's find a way to connect. But you also have to have a level of disciplinary authority of like, hey, it's still going to be what I think as the coach. This is what we need to do. Love to hear your ideas. Let's all collaborate through this thing. But at the end of the day, like, we're going to live and die by my ideas. And if I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose it doing it the way I think I should do it, not the way you want to do it, right? So it's a very, very, very tricky thing to maneuver. But what I will say is I was very lucky in that this group in Tacoma, with a lot of remnants that are still here, are very grounded, down-to-earth humans. I never had to deal with like a massive ego player or a player who didn't want to buy in. I never had to. And whether that's by design or by chance, I don't care. But either way, I never had one of those things where you sit there and you scratch your head and go, how am I going to deal with this? Because this is going to blow me up. So it was, I would recommend anybody who ever can do it to do it, just to like experience it, because I think it's a learning experience that's unique.
Yeah. Did they stop texting you on like Friday and Saturday night when they were going out?
You know what, there is a weird dynamic where it's like they want to be nice to you, but they also don't want to feel like they're kissing your ass. So they don't want to like, they're not going to be like, hey man, great game yesterday, because that's like weird, right? You wouldn't tell your coach that. You wouldn't be like, hey man, you're doing great. So yeah, I don't get. I mean, they also know that I go to bed at like 9:30 p.m. every day, and my kids are up at 6. So I'm not getting texts on a Friday night anyway.
Okay, so it sort of worked out in a
It works
weird
out
way. um, well, I got beach soccer and I got NWSL still to get on real quick. Let's go NWSL. I got to ask about that experience, right? I mean, the league, it's so important, right? It's just so important to the ecosystem of soccer here in the US. At the same time, it's really complicated. And so you would have a very unique perspective on this. So you were the general manager of the OL Reign for a year. Just how did it come about? What was your experience like?
Yeah, so I had actually just taken on a job at Washington Youth Soccer as the state association for youth soccer as the executive director, and I'd only been in the role for maybe 6 7 months. Um, and I was sitting in on the Seattle World Cup FIFA bid. Like we were sitting in on the bid to have Seattle be a city. And the gentleman next to me, I had my phone on me, and there was a bunch of names across the way in the hall of who was talking, and I had to be like checking who they were, like this, because I didn't want anyone to know that I didn't know who they were, because it was like high level FIFA people or organizing committee people. So I was doing it, and at one point I kind of leaned over and was like, "Do you know who that is?" And I picked up an accent, and so I just, we talked about it later, and he was actually the CEO. Well, he was the CFO at the time of the OL Reign, and he was from France. And I happened to speak French. I lived in Belgium for a long time, so we were chatting in French. And we were chatting. Um, and then at one point, I was trying to convince them to. I was with Washington Youth Soccer, and I was running a charity or a gala to benefit one of our after-school programs for the underserved communities of Washington. And I was trying to get them to continue it and fund it. And it was actually the 50th anniversary of women's soccer in the state of Washington. And we were going to throw this big gala and have all the money donate to a bunch of organizations that we created, Let Her Play, Let Her Coach, directly young girls in Washington either play for free or coach, get their licenses for free. And so I said, you guys should be the title sponsor, OL Reign. You guys should be the ones. And so in those communications, he kind of asked me at one point, what do you want to do in your life later? That one of those general, like, what do you see your life going? And I said, I would like to be a general manager of a major sports club at some point in the future. And then he said, well, okay. And then, like, I don't know, whatever it was, 2 months later, he calls me and says, hey, there's a general manager job opening here at OL Reign. Would you be interested in interviewing? And I said,
Universe
yes.
speaking to you.
Yeah. And honestly, I wasn't expecting it to come so quick. I was actually kind of hoping that it would coincide with the end of my playing career, because I think that these jobs are so, well, I know now because I've done it, so demanding on your time, on your effort, on your energy, and even on your just mental focus, that if you're not 100% dialed into what you're doing, it's very difficult. So I interviewed and things went well, and I was offered the job, and then I took it on. I think it was March of last year, and it was crazy 360 turnaround. We lived in LA, or we lived in San Diego. I'm sorry, my whole family. We moved up here for the Washington Youth Soccer job. So summer of 2021, we moved up here just thinking, okay, well, I've got this new job, Washington Youth Soccer. Let's move to Washington. And then 7 months later, I'm the general manager of the OL Reign, and yeah, the rest, and then it took off from there.
And then I'm sure you basically just answered the question right there. You like got to be 100% dialed in on something like that, and you're still playing beach soccer, you're still playing arena soccer, you're still playing sneaky fox soccer. So basically, you just sort of realized, holy shit, like this is a lot of time, a lot of mental effort. I want to do this, but maybe not right now.
Yeah, I think that it was a situation where the league itself is in a transitional moment, right? The league kind of came out of this, those horrific things that happened in the league prior to my arrival, where a lot of executives, coaches, general managers, people were fired for some very, very, very untoward behavior, which, thank goodness, in the time that I was there, I saw kind of what came out of that, and the pattern and the path that was charted from there, the signing of the CBA. but even in my 1 year that I was there, I saw marked differences and moments of elevation where the game itself, the league itself, the sport itself is going in this direction. And I just think that there was a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort required. And I have little children, and I have a lot of things going on, and I didn't feel like I was in a position mentally to continue taking on that task. And it was a very hard decision because you're leaving a high profile job with an organization that we did very well. I mean, last year, they hadn't won a trophy since 2014 or 15. In the year that I was there, we won the NWSL Shield. We also won the Women's Cup tournament. So we'd had some success, but at the end of the day, I think sort of that mental energy, mental health component of it is the most important. And spreading myself too thin with too many things was just hurting my family and hurting me.
So we might see Nick Perera again in a management role down the road. You're not closing that door at this point.
No, not at all. I think that if anything, the 1 year I had proved that I can do it. I think that the timelines of it were too difficult, and like I said, the mental drain on everyone's body in that league is really, really, really tough. I mean, the coaches work their socks off, the players work their socks off, everybody on the staff is working their socks off. Most of the staffs are understaffed because you're trying to piece together as much as you can, because the finances don't always follow the growth, right? Like the league grows, but does the financial contribution grow? Well, not always. So there's some time, there's some dissonance there. And in that dissonance, everyone's got 16 hats on trying to do the best they can. And it's not always conducive to like employee satisfaction, right? Like sometimes you just have to grind through it, and it's ugly. And I just think that the timelines and the manner of it for me, I couldn't do it.
Sure. I mean, as somebody who has little kids and wasn't wearing the 15 different hats you were wearing as a NWSL executive, I know how mentally draining just having small children can be. So I certainly understand what you're saying there. Now, quickly on beach soccer, the thing about beach soccer, I know it is or was huge in Europe. It's never really been that big here. Is it basically that the U.S. team is specifically, they just sort of poach all the Arena League players and say, come play beach? How does that work?
No, that used to be the format that we adhered to for some time, because as you saw at TST, the small-sided Arena players, the team that won, they're all Arena players. Yep. They're used to that level of quick decision making. They're used to the substitution rules where they fly in, they fly out. They're used to sort of positional play, and they're used to that technical component that requires you to play quickly in small spaces, right? Even on our team, we had players that had played MLS that led to their game, and others that it wasn't necessarily part of their game. So the Arena player does that, and beach soccer is very much that as well. So there are technical components that carry over really well. What I will say for beaches is it's a completely different game. So we've had, in the time that I've been in the beach team since 2011, we've had maybe 40 Arena players come try it, and only sort of 4 or 5 really stick. Just because the components of it are very different. And I remember talking to Landon and Jermaine when they were playing indoor, and I was trying to say, you guys need to come to the beach team. Just on a media and marketing side alone, having Jermaine Jones running around in beach soccer would be fantastic. Yep. They were both like, no way, no chance. Like physically, there's no chance I can do it, and technically, I'm not going to embarrass myself trying. So Arena does have a good carryover, but it's not automatic.
Okay. Are we being the United States of America, are we going to win a World Cup first on sand or on grass? Men's.
I would say that the amount of effort required to win it on grass would be significantly lower than it would be on grass. I'm sorry, on sand versus grass. Like we could win one. I think we're 14th or 13th in the world right now on beach. Mm-hmm. And if U.S. soccer really wanted to win a World Cup, we could win it without too much, like within the next 4 years, I think. Mm-hmm. It would just require, like all things, investment, time, effort, energy, full dedication. And in grass, I wasn't here in 1994 when they were saying that, in whatever it was, we'll win it. But I don't see us winning a World Cup in the next, I don't know, World Cup cycles, 4 World Cup cycles. I would say the next 16 years, we're not winning one, in my opinion. But hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Agree to disagree. We're winning in 26. No, listen. Okay, let's move to rapid fire. I know you got a flight to catch here. So, beach soccer. You play all these different kinds of soccer: beach soccer, indoor soccer, futsal soccer. Well, I guess not futsal soccer. Futsal, regular, outdoor soccer. Which one is your favorite, and why?
I think beach soccer. I think beach soccer because now I just turned 37, and I think that I could probably play beach soccer until I'm 45. So I might as well say that one to keep my career going. No, I think beach soccer is special. It's very special. If you've never been to a beach game, you need to go. There's like a joy is in the air. There's like a passionate joy there that not all other types of soccer have. So I'll say beach.
Okay. This is going to be a tough one considering how many highlights you had at the TST tournament. I mean, you're on the team of the tournament. You scored numerous goals, including I think maybe multiple game-winning goals for us. Great thing about the tournament, by the way, you always end on a goal, which is awesome. But looking back now, maybe it doesn't even have to be a goal, doesn't even have to be on the field. What was your favorite memory from the tournament?
I'll pick two because I think they're easy. Number one, I'll say that the semifinal, the quarterfinal goal that sent us to the semifinal when we were 3v3, we were down 1-0. We ended up pulling 2 goals back in target time. The left footer, it was left foot across, and I scored to send it there. The reaction from our bench, right, from everybody that was there, going nuts. That was awesome. And then a non-playing memory, I think, is that moment in which we were all in a room, and Jay Demerit kind of said, I want to know what motivates you, and I want to know who you are so that I can know if I like to fight for you. I need to know you. And hearing people's responses, there was this, like, the tension of a new team. There's usually high tension, like, I don't know if I'm going to know this guy. The second that discussion happened, I felt like that tension just went way down. And the camaraderie after that went way up. Like, everyone suddenly was like, oh, these are good people. I'm amongst friends here. I can be myself. And that was really special because I think that very few teams are that way, where you walk in a door, you spend 20 minutes with someone, and you go, we're cool. And that was special to me. And like I said yesterday to Mike McGee, I had this chip on my shoulder. I always have had it, that I wasn't good enough for the MLS. That was my chip. Like, I was never good enough. So going there with all these MLS guys and my fear of them being like, oh, you're that guy that didn't make it. And then it being the complete opposite, having Wondolowski walk up to me in the middle of a bar and be like, dude, you're unbelievable. There was like this kind of vindication of like, okay, I'm still a good soccer player. I can be a good soccer player and travel a different road. So there was a lot of amazing memories there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like there were so many sort of interesting and there's so many leaders on the team. I mean, like, you were a leader, especially among the players. Brad Evans certainly was, but then there was all these sort of assistant coaches and everything that were clear leaders too. Demerit, Kyle Martino, Nick Raimondo, Alan Gordon, Mike McGee, obviously not an assistant coach. It was just such a cool dynamic, and sort of everybody brought their own voice in a different way. It was such a good group, such a great group, as I should say.
I think it's something that I always say this to everybody in sports, in soccer especially. We don't realize what you have, and you might not for like 10 years. Like, we're like basking in this now and we're enjoying it, but in 10 years we're going to look back and be like, what an unbelievable experience that was, to bring together 25 random people, stick them in a room, and have everybody walk out like arm in arm brothers. Like, that's not a thing. That doesn't happen. So as a social experiment, incredible, and it couldn't have been more positive.
That's right. And TST is meant to be, an annual thing going forward. So not specific to Sneaky Fox, but do you see indoor and futsal teams basically dominating going forward the way that Newtown did? Or will outdoor teams somehow, find a way to whatever, tweak their strategy and compete better?
Yeah, I think that the indoor teams are going to always have an inherent advantage in small-sided games. But I actually, what I'm hoping and what I think is going to happen is that Year one, some of the players that didn't participate in TST that were maybe cynical like me watched what just happened and are gonna and I think next year's teams are gonna be stacked. Like I think everyone that's ever played or that is thinking about retiring or is about to retire from outdoor soccer or about to retire from anywhere in that level is going to look at it and be like, I need to be at this tournament. Like I actually think people like Wondolowski, people like McGee are going to go back and be training for the next 10, like 12 months going, I need to win TST next year. So I think that we're going to have this professionalization of the teams, which is fantastic. And I think that now everyone understands 7v7. Like at the beginning of the tournament, the rules were specific. There's like a couple of rules that are very specific to the game. I don't think that'll happen next year. So I think the level of play is going to go up.
Okay. Again, rapid fire. So we're going to jump to some random ones here. If you could change one thing about NWSL, what would it be?
I'd want the financial growth to catch up with the growth of the game. I'd want to have 30,000 people in the stadium. I'd want to have all the stadiums full, the players paid what they should be paid, and the staff's fully funded. It's just have the finances grow with the trend of the game.
Okay. I feel like I should have you hooked up to like a lie machine for this one. Any second thoughts on choosing Sneaky Fox over Newtown, the eventual champions?
No, none at all. None at all. I mean, it was honestly, I took a phone with the guy who ran, or I took a call with the guy who ran Newtown. Had a nice chat with the guy. I took a phone call with Mike McGee, and my mind was made up within 2 minutes of talking to Mike McGee. And I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, Mike's like that.
I'd rather win money with those people. I'd rather win $0 with those people than get paid to win with people that I don't like connect with the way we did. So
yeah. 100%. I mean, not only does Mike have that sort of playing pedigree, but just sort of his personality is like, yep, I'm on board. Whatever the fuck you want to do, I'm on board. What is the wildest part-time job one of your Arena League teammates has had?
I'll tell you one that I almost had. Almost. I was trying to make ends meet, and there was a casting call for a promotional modeling. And I thought it was like, we need soccer players, athletes. And it was to be the Captain Morgan guy at a bar and hand out Captain Morgan shots and stand on the barrel. And so I had to like do the thing, like on those casting calls, we had to like stand there and pretend to do them. So I had to do that, and then they kind of offered me a job, and I was like, no, I can't do this. So that was the one I almost had to do, just to be like, they were like, oh, it's like $500 a night. I'm going $500 a night. Let's do it. What do I have to do? Like, well, you stand there and you pass out shots. You're in a pirate costume, and you go to do the the knee up, and I was like, no, I don't think I can do it. So that was an almost.
I'll do anything, but I won't do that.
Long time. Yeah.
Last one. What's the plan? So with the Tacoma Stars here, you told us like the situation is good. The team, the organization is in a good spot. What's sort of your plan for it?
Yeah, I think that the next step for the Stars is to try to capitalize on the rich history of this club. Like in the 80s and 90s, this club was the show, right? And then arena soccer, obviously, as outdoor soccer grew, arena soccer kind of died off in its relevance. I think what we need to do is get back to our community. We need to get back into with the people that are here, and really make investments in our community and culture building around here, being in schools, creating programs for kids, being involved with youth development. And then let the sport itself be carried by the community and culture we create, right? I think everyone tries to create, like, I want to create money and revenue through the club. I think it's the other way around. It's got to be, we create a culture, we create community, we build community through every layer we can, from youth all the way through, and that will allow the club then to grow. So I think that's the trajectory. Obviously trying to get some good players to come into our program, which we're always looking for good players. TST had plenty of good players, a couple on our team that I would love to add to the Stars. But I think that the organizations in the MASL have to grow, and we're the same. We want to become robust financially. We want to also invest in our communities, and there's no reason that those two can't go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Listen, I could keep asking you. I got so many questions about all the different sort of hats you've worn and all the things you've done. So hopefully, you'll come back on here before too long. But thank you again. It was a pleasure watching you play, by the way, and it was great to get to sort of know you. And keep going with the Stars, and we'll run it back again next year with Sneaky Fox, most hopefully.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And like I said to everybody at the tournament, Stars tickets on me. So whenever we're around, whenever you guys are here, you need to come catch a game and come dive in. And if you want to come sit on the bench behind us and shout curses at people and do stuff, you're more than welcome to be on the bench.
Now watch out with that offer. You might get what you're asking for there.
Oh, I've seen it. I'm good with it. We're good.
Sounds good. Nick Ferreira, thank you very much. And everybody else, thank you for listening. We'll see you guys again next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Sure.